So in the previous lab exercise, you learned about how we can use GPS to give us locations on a map. And in the future, I think it's possible real estate will probably eventually be doing that. But at the moment, we're not completely converted over to that. And real estate and geologists, of all people, still use a method that's called the public land survey system. We have our kind of own method of giving map locations. It's called the public land survey system, or for short, we call it township and range. And so until we get rid of this system, it's very much a part of geology. And so the second part of today's lab, after you learn to measure distances on maps, is we're going to learn how to give locations of points in maps, on maps, the geologic way. And if you notice this map of the US, the public land survey system was not developed until most of the original 13 colonies, plus a few others, Kentucky, Tennessee, were already surveyed and mapped. It came about later, so most of the states after that are mapped using the public land survey system. These guys were using the old meets and bounds that Britain was using. And don't ask me what's happening with Texas there. They have their own that's sort of a combination thing. But if you look closely, you notice that showing up again and again on here are frequently a east-west trending line and a north-south trending line, if you will, a horizontal and vertical line. We've got, and these are called, according, as you can see on the map, they're called baselines and principal meridians. So here we're blowing up Montana. We're going to look a little closer at Montana. By the way, your lab book, and my lab book is in the next room. Let me pause this video for just a second. And I'm back. Strongly suggest that you look in your lab book. Page 100 has a good explanation and graphical demonstration of what we're going to be doing. They've got baseline, principal meridians, everything that we're going to be doing here. They explain on page 100 in your lab book. So you notice Montana here. They have a baseline and they have a principal meridian. Those are the starting points for the surveyors. They're the reference points. And you can see that what they've done after that is they've drawn a whole bunch of lines parallel to both of those lines all the way to the edge of the state on every side. So they have subdivided the state into a grid. These little squares that are formed as a result of these lines, well, let me back up. These lines, every one of these lines are drawn 6 miles apart. So you've got these strips of land that are 6 miles high, and you've got these columns of land that are 6 miles wide. So each one of these little squares in here are 6 miles by 6 miles. And we call where a column and a row intersect, we call that a quadrangle. But each quadrangle has an address. It has a location address based on its proximity to the baseline and the principal meridian. And this address is no more difficult than you playing Battleship. Hopefully you know that when someone says B4 in Battleship or G10, you know exactly where to go on that grid. Well, this is done the same way. These strips of land that are 6 miles high and they're drawn parallel to, they are parallel to the baseline, those are called townships. Notice that on our map here, they say that south of the baseline and then north of the baseline, those are north townships, and these are south townships. Each township is named, excuse me, relative to how close it is to the baseline. So this first strip of land is called Township 1 North. The second one is Township 2 North. 3 north, 4 north, 5 north, 6 north, and so on until you get to the boundary, Canada in this case. And then Township 1 South, 2 South, and so on. Well, the columns of land are the same, except they're not townships, they are ranges. So The first strip of land to the east of the principal meridian, the 6 mile wide strip, is called Range 1 East. The second one is called Range 2 East, and so on. So this little square right here, it has a unique township range address. You might even call it its battleship address. And that address is, well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is Range 5 East. It's the 5th range east of the principal meridian. And it is, we're going to have to do some counting for the township. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. Township 22 North. If I say Township 22 North, Range 5 East, that will only take you to that little square. So each quadrangle has a unique township and range location. That's the start. That's the start of the public land survey system. There's California. It's got several principal meridians and baselines. So here's that blown up, zoomed in just a little bit. We've still got a baseline, and we've still got a principal meridian. And I still have my square on there, which I'm going to erase that because I may need the pen for something else here. So they are describing this quadrangle right here as having a township range address is Township 2 South, Range 3 West. So first township south of the baseline, second township. That's that strip there. Range 3 West is 1, 2, 3rd. And so where those two intersect is the square, Township 2 South, Range 3 West. And this is 6 miles by 6 miles, meaning that this whole thing is 36 square miles in area. So the address of this particular quadrangle, stop the video for a second, pause it and figure out what it is, and then I'm going to put the answer on here. If you stopped it, paused it, and came back, then you know that you figured out that this is Township 3 North, and it is Range 4 East. When I say that combination of numbers, this is the only square I can go to. So as we said, that is a start. Now, each quadrangle, each 6 mile by 6 mile part is then subdivided. And the people who produce these maps, the United States Geologic Survey, they subdivide these further. So I'm going to have to do this to advance the slide. And it's subdivided into 36 sections. And notice that these sections are numbered kind of weird. And you're going to need to refer to this on a practice exercise that I'm going to assign to you. These sections are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then down. So it's kind of a down and across zigzag manner. So that this range line is dividing this quadrangle from the next one over. That means that the section right here is going to be section 6. The section here will be section 31. A section right here will be section 36. A section here will be section 6, but they will have different township range addresses. Now, if we know that from here to here is 6 miles, and that from here to here is 6 miles also, and there's 36 of these sections, how big does that tell us that each section is? Again, pause the tape and figure it out for a little bit if you don't know already. But if you paused and came back, you know that each section is going to be 1 mile by 1 mile. And therefore is 1 square mile. But this 1 square mile is also 640 acres. 640 acres. Excuse me. So you would say that this one has an address of section 21, township, whatever. And so we can't see which township and range it is, but if it was this one that we were experimenting with before, we would say Township 2 South, Range 3 West. We'd say section 21, Township 3 South, Range 3 West. There's also a section 21 in here and there, but they each have different battleship coordinates. So when we're given the location of something on a map, we're going to give it telling what section it's in and then what township and range it is. The section numbers on the USGS map are red, and they are as close to the exact center of that section as they can possibly be without being on top of some other feature. After they number those, if you want to see just where the section lines are, because they're supposed to be red, but they're not always red, is you simply go a half mile in all four directions from that number, and it will take you to the section line. Half mile north, half mile south, half mile east, and half mile west will show you where the section line is. And we will, we're going to look at a topo map in here in just a little bit to show you these sections. But next, I'm going to show you, we're going to blow up and look at an individual section. I guess we're not. So it's time for us to go to the map. I guess that was the end of the slides. So it's time for me to go to a map, and I'm going to try and find one real quick. And if I don't have it, which I don't, I'm going to pause and find it. Okay, we're looking at a topo map of Fayetteville right now. And don't worry about all these contour lines. That's for next week's lab. But we're looking at this topo map of Fayetteville. And you see these red numbers. Those are section numbers. There's 13, there's 14, there's 18. If 13 and 18 are next to each other, that means there is a range line separating them. If we go down a little bit, there's 24 right there. 13, 14, so over here off the map would be 15, and so on down to 24, then 25, 26. So these are all section lines, and section numbers. The section lines are supposed to be red. And they're not always red because there are other features, boundaries and such that correspond to that. So if you really want to know where the section lines are, look for red. But if you don't find it, go a half mile in all directions, like I said a little bit earlier in the video, and a half mile will take you to there and to there and to there. So here are the corners of section 13. So the next thing that you will do, so the USGS has subdivided these things up to this point. Now you do subdividing. So the next thing that you will do, once you figured out the section that your feature is in, let's say that I asked you the location of that building right there. That's a home, by the way. Well, you need to subdivide this section into 4 equal quadrants. So you can do this by imagination or do a screen drawing on it, but these 4 quadrants are named according to their direction. So this is the northwest quadrant, and this is the northeast quadrant, and this is the southeast, and this is the southwest. So I would say that this building is in the southeast quadrant of section 13. So how do I write that? I say that it is in the southeast 1/4, comma, section 13, then comma, township whatever, range whatever. And to figure that out, we're going to have to kind of scoot the map around a little bit. I'm going to go up the map and till I see a line. There's a boundary line. Township 16 north is below to the south of that line. Township 17 north, it's the north. So we're in Township 16 north. And we are in, looks like this is the dividing line between 31 and 30. So I'm going to have to scoot over. And looks like we're in range 31 west. And you might think that we are about through, and the thing is we're almost through. We're not quite through. So I got to center this back on there if I can. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? So now that we know that our house is in the southeast quarter of section 13, these 3 quadrants become irrelevant. And now we're concentrating only on this one. And we're going to take that one and subdivide it. And we're going to call that northwest, northeast, and so on. So the location of that house, it's actually in the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 13, Township 16 North, Range 31 West. You give that address to a geology person and they'll know exactly where to go. They'll go to this 40-acre block. So a section is 640 acres, a quarter section is 160 acres, and a quarter section is 40 acres. Land used to be commonly sold and still is in 40-acre blocks. If you've ever heard of someone talking about the back 40 or the north 40, then that is exactly what they're talking about, some 40-acre block that was purchased in this manner, because real estate is still subdivided using this method. Always write it from smallest area to largest area. This pond is located in the northeast of the southeast. But if you had them switched and said southeast of the northeast, that would be referring to a pond here. So it would take you to the wrong pond. You know, this one's got piranhas or something in it, big ones. One little bit of trivia, I got to erase this on here. You may or may not be familiar with Fayetteville at all. But if you notice on this part of the map, there is a line right here. This is the dividing line between Township 17 North and 16 North. And if we follow it all the way across the map, we notice that on the eastern part of the map, that line kind of disappears because there is a road there instead. And so we have to show that road, obviously, because it is a map. We got to show terrain features. The name of that road, if you're familiar with Fayetteville, any wild guesses? That is Township Road. And it's named that because it literally is a road that was plotted right on the boundary between Township 16 North and 17 North. So there's your daily trivia that you can feel really, really happy about. Underneath these videos, there is first a practice exercise on township and range and sections and stuff. I urge you to do that before you start on the quiz part of this lab. After you do that practice part, which is not for credit, not for points, then start in on the 4 points part. Contact me if you have any questions before starting that lab.